All right, so quick video here for the randoms, and I'm going to allow myself a brief moment of self-congratulation because this is quite a nice game, and there's a game in this playlist where I got beaten. So okay, I'm going to allow myself a good one here, just because at the end of it there's a forced mate in 5, and I briefly put the position up in one of the attempting to get to 2000 grade videos. I put up the forced mate just as a puzzle for the chess club people having a look. But this is the full game, and it's just really, really nice. Everything just sort of works, and then there's the attack at the end. It came from a 3-minute blitz game. Anyway, so yeah, just for posterity, and because why shouldn't I every once in a while show me getting something right instead of making silly blunders. So okay, here we go. So I'm white. No names here because, as I say, I was using my personal account, not the Handball Chess Boss account. I've just played the moves on the board. So d4, because I nearly always start with d4. It's just what I like. Funnily enough, it says Caro-Kann defense here, and it ends up being the Caro-Kann defense by what's called transposition of moves. So all the first few moves, but played in a completely different order, in a really weird order, and you get the same position. But it isn't actually a Caro-Kann defense in the typical sense, because the Caro-Kann is e4 and then c6. But we get there in the end by weird move order. So knight f3, develop a piece, and then this move, which I really, really hate. So normally I like to play the Torre attack, which is to bring the bishop out. So it's these 3 moves to start with. But when black plays that, I then switch to what's called the Colli system, or at least I try to, and then black ruins that plan. And that's e3, and then you can put a pawn on c3 if you want. You might play the pawn to b3 instead, bring the bishop out that way, and it's a very solid system, a little bit passive, but very solid. Anyway, so e3 is what I played. It's all book moves. That's what the little symbol there is. It's stuff that's been played before. And then this is where black turns it into a Caro-Kann by taking, which is an okay move, but okay, fine. I take back, and that unblocks that bishop, which I'm really, really happy about. And then d5 is played, and how it is basically now is where it's the Caro-Kann. So if you played the moves e4 at the beginning of the game, e4, c6, d4, d5, pawn takes, knight f3, knight f6, you'd end up with this position from the Caro-Kann. It's really weird to get a Caro-Kann from a queen's pawn open. But anyway, who cares? That's not what this is about. So c3 is fine. Computer wanted me to develop the bishop, but whatever. I just like having the nice solid center. Fine. e6 is okay, but look at the analysis. Bishop f5 the computer prefers, because now the bishop is a bit stuck behind that pawn. So it's a very solid move, that, but it does trap the bishop. And now I play bishop d3, fine, just develop. Bishop e7, absolutely developing, nothing wrong with it. But notice, because black's a little bit passive, the computer quite likes the white position. Castles, absolutely, absolutely. And usually in the Torre attack, the London system, all of these system openings, that white eventually wants to put a knight on e5. And there it is, done it. Knight to c6, challenging the knight. And this move, okay. I just like that. It kind of, you end up with part of a, almost like the stone wall opening, which is just, again, it's really, really solid, even though this bishop becomes a bit dodgy, stuck sometimes behind the pawns on black squares, but it's nice and solid. The computer wanted to play knight to d2, but nothing wrong with f4. Still a slight advantage to white. Bishop d7 just develops a piece. It wanted knight e4 there. I'm not sure about that. I don't know. I mean, the computer's better than me, but I don't know. Just don't know. Bishop takes, knight, pawn takes. It just looks like that pawn's a bit cut off, but maybe not. Knight d2, fine, just developing. Rook c8, it says is the best move. Gives an alternative of dropping the knight back, but okay. And bishop c2 is just my way of starting to point things at this square, and I want the queen in front of the bishop. See, if I have the bishop here and the queen here, it's not going to be checkmate. Whereas if the queen's here and the bishop's here, then this square becomes quite a target. So I was doing that because I thought about putting the queen in a couple of moves on d3. So I'm just sort of starting to wonder about checkmates up here. And bishop d6 gets no mistakes really, nothing wrong, there's no errors. Rook to f3, so I'm starting what's called a rook lift, where you bring it above the castle position and come across to start hitting at the enemy position. And I want to put it on h3, pointing at this square, same as the bishop, and possibly the queen will end up on d3 as well. So I've got my plan of attack. And the trouble for black is, although their position's quite safe, everything's kind of over this side of the board. So I'm hoping that we'll get a nice strong attack on the king. Knight e7's fine. Rook h3 as planned is fine. And that's the mistake. That's black's mistake. The right move is, according to the computer, is to play h5. But definitely knight f5 isn't going to do it. And it's not going to do it because it invites the next move. G4. So I can immediately kick the knight away. And although that's, you wouldn't normally want to move pawns in front of your king like this, but what is actually going to attack my king? Nothing. It's all trapped over here. So I figured it would be safe. And the computer says it's the best move. And now we're already looking like being some material ahead. But okay, so G4, the pawn can't be taken because it's defended here. And black chooses to put the knight back again. Strangely enough, G6, just accepting the loss of a piece is the best move. But okay, I can understand why black's put the knight back. G5, just keep going. So I'm now rolling everything towards the enemy king, trying to play for checkmate. Knight to E4. Okay, fine. Well, I don't want that in the way of my bishop and rook pointing at H7, so swaps. The computer doesn't like that, by the way. It thinks bishop takes E4 is better. But my logic was simply that I wanted to keep the bishop pointing at this square. But okay, D takes E4, bishop takes E4, like so. And now bishop to E5. And what's the winning move now? This is where it gets really pretty because there's actually a forced checkmate in 5 moves now from here for white. Yeah, have a go. See if you can find it. What's the forced move, forced checkmate for white that basically involves a checkmate with these 3 pieces pointing at the enemy king? Hit pause if you want to have a go at finding it. And if you spotted the correct move now is bishop takes h7. That's amazing. So it's check. We'll go through why it's a forced sequence of moves. The king has only 1 square. It has to go there because the rook's protecting the bishop. Now the next move is going to involve discovering the check, so uncovering the check from the rook here. So we move the bishop. I put it on g6, although I think it probably works if you put the bishop literally anywhere on this diagonal. Like, I reckon it would work. The black king has only 1 legal move, so the check from the rook, the only legal move is here. And now another chance to pause. It's now banged down to mate in 3 white moves. Now queen h5 looks tempting, but pawn takes bishop, queen checks, and the king has suddenly got an escape square. So queen h5 isn't going to do it. What's the winning move? Hit pause if you want to try and work it out. And well done if you spotted the correct move for mate in 3. It's a rook sacrifice, rook to h8. It's a forcing move. We really wanted to get the queen to h5, but it wasn't quick enough to do it on the previous move, on the previous move. Instead, rook to h8, the king has to capture, and now queen h5 is with check, so black has to escape the check, and finally queen to h7 is mate with the support from the bishop. So yeah, it's just a really, really, really nice finish. That's why I thought it was worth putting that one on here. Quite a nice game, I thought. And so yeah, why not? We've seen one on here where somebody sacrificed something against me and it worked out really, really well. So my turn to have a game of mine that went really well. So a nice miniature. Just have a look at the finish again. So bishop takes, king moves, bishop g6, rook sacrifice, king takes, queen to h5, king g8, queen h7. So yeah, just a nice game. I just thought that might be worth keeping. Nice one, nice little miniature, and a typical plan from playing these kind of setups in the queen's pawn opening, where you sort of hope to get these attacks on the king's side. If black doesn't really do anything active, it almost plays itself. So yeah, yeah. Hope you enjoyed that one. See you later.